I'm done with being the underdog. I recently just heard about Instagram is no longer letting people easily opt out of letting their art being trained for AI, and these just makes things all the more frustrating for us creatives just trying to live. I am ready for the villain arc. I'm also just done with myself just feeling sorry for myself during these days that I don't feel confident about this journey that I'm embarking on as an independent artist. Instead of just always being like, I hope this journey will work out for me, I'm gonna start thinking like this journey will work out for me. So join me in on this week in a life of a full-time artist by grabbing life by the neck, and let's get through this season of life together. So with the rise of AI and a lot of job layoffs these days, I think one of the biggest mistakes we can learn from school is to just be good at one thing. This is something that a lot of our teachers probably taught us when really it doesn't help in the long run with the ever-changing landscape of the art industry. If I were to be a teacher today teaching students in art or animation, I would make the suggestion of not putting all of your eggs in one basket. But what does that mean? For me, that personally means having one strong brand, which is yourself as an artist, that can gain enough of a reputation to dish out many different projects throughout your lifetime. I feel like what I've learned from my experience as an artist thus far is that you can have the greatest project idea, but it's difficult for the project to stand on its own 2 feet when the artist or the creator behind it is not really as well known. Of course, there are always instances where projects do blow up without the artist being well known to begin with, but I would say that these are the exceptions and not the rule. So personally, what I do is have me, myself, Mew Tripled, or Michelle Lamb as the main brand or the hub behind the multiple different projects that I will do in my lifetime, which includes graphic novels, doing this YouTube channel, or any other future projects I plan to take on. And the only reason why these projects would ever get some sort of viewership from its launch is because a lot of those audience members are from people who know me via Michelle Lamb or Mew Tripled, whereas a lot of people who launch projects without a brand or a name or a face behind the work kind of have to rely on the projects themselves to be successful, and if they are not, it's kind of like you would have to reconsider redoing it, scrapping it, and starting a new project all over again without really having any previous data about if this is something people even want to see. Again, this is not to say that standalone projects won't be successful, it's just more so that if there is already an artist behind the project that is well known, the project has an increased chance of success, whereas the project without the known artist might just take a little bit more time for kickoff. So how does this tie back into being an artist, combating AI, and job layoffs? From my experience, I've learned that as long as you have a strong identity, brand, voice, presence, whatever term you want it to be that describes your existence as an artist, you have the ability to keep dishing out as many projects of whatever types you want, whenever you want, because when you are known to some degree, people are always going to want something from the true you and the real you. It's like the difference between something that's authentic versus a bootleg, or something that is canon or fan fiction. You can still enjoy the bootleg or fan fiction version of something, but you know that it will never be what is actually the legit thing, which can't really be replaceable. And that's kind of how I view AI art versus artists. Ever since I graduated school, I had a lot of difficulty in finding my first job, and being in that position scared me so much of ever being in that position again. So while I was working my first job, I was investing all of my time off hours into creating Instagram comics, working on publishing a graphic novel, starting this YouTube channel, starting my Patreon, and starting my Etsy. I was also starting a bunch of other things like trying out webtoons and different freelances, and eventually narrowed down to the things I ultimately enjoyed doing the most. This all ultimately came from a place of me refusing to be disposable. After months of rejection, I just could no longer allow myself to continue to be kicked to the curb. So while I still strived to work in animation and be a part of the industry, I knew I had to do other things so that even if one day I was not working an animation job, there was always other things that I've planted seeds in that I could hopefully flourish in one day. So when it comes to my brand, quote unquote Mew Tripled, other than being a silly username I made up from being 11 years old, it is a brand that basically encompasses everything that I ever showcase to you all here on YouTube, which includes my YouTube videos, my history working in animation, my graphic novels that I publish, my social media accounts on Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, my Etsy shop. All of those little branches lead back to the trunk that is Mew Tripled. And when I think of Mew Tripled, or for those of you who are familiar with my work, a lot of my stuff represents not giving up, defying the social norms, consistently putting effort into your dreams and passions, and a focus on execution and getting things out there instead of being that artist that creates things, disappears for a while, and repeats the cycle. There's nothing wrong with that if that's how you operate as an artist, but for me, that's not really how I prefer to run my things. So if people are ever wanting to consume stories or see somebody live their life that embodies these things, usually they would either go read my comics or watch my YouTube videos or pick up my graphic novel or reference the things that I've done for their work or their life. But the way that people get to know me as an artist is through these varieties of ways. While I do a bunch of different things, there's ultimately a subconscious strategy behind them that allows people to recognize me as me. So for example, my Instagram comics are kind of where a lot of people first discover me, and then through that they find out that I have a YouTube channel, and through that they find out a little bit more about who I am as the artist, how I run things, the behind the scenes, and me giving tips and advice on how you can also do the same thing. You probably see some things like me running my Patreon or Etsy shop, which gives space for people who want to get to know me a little better or have closer interactions with me via email or shipped goods. And then there are more official projects like the animated films and shows I worked on and my published graphic novels, which kind of establish the credentials about why I should be a trustworthy artist or person that you should listen to because I've achieved something in my life. So maybe I have done something right that maybe you can be inspired by the decisions of. At the end of the day, all of these things are kind of like a package that you receive from just knowing who I am as an artist. And that is something that I find would be difficult for AI to entirely replicate, especially with where it is now. Sure, it can animate, and sure, there are AI influencers out there, but I think that knowing when something is real versus something that is not is going to be the deciding factor of if this person wants to choose to follow the artist or the AI. Sure, maybe the AI could eventually develop an art style that is better than the artist and produce more work, but the artist is the person that is still going to be living through the ups and downs of life and figuring out ways to navigate their career or life as an artist, which I find it difficult to fully believe that AI can fully replicate that right now and just take over a human body and just do all of those things. Like, sure, maybe that's something to worry about in like 2000 something in the future, but I'm just gonna focus on what are the actual issues happening right now before entering science fiction territory. But what I'm ultimately trying to say is that even though you create art as an artist, there is still an entire life you have as an artist that you can share with others that a lot of people out there actually really want to see that you probably don't even know about. And to have your art supplement your life as an artist kind of elevates you even more. Of course, juggling all of these things in life are not easy to do, so I still have to maintain my physical health, mental health through exercise, journaling, and yes, I'm still doing the artist's way, but also being reminded that I have such a supportive community via Patreon and my Etsy shop gives me the strength to keep doing things like working on my graphic novels and making weekly YouTube videos. And from all of these experiences, I then can create Instagram comics out of me going all of these different motions. And from that, I can build a community that allows me so many more opportunities in life, like my upcoming trips to Japan, South Korea, where I will be able to meet and travel with you all and hopefully get to understand some of your art career goals or concerns. And of course, there's always that part of me outside of being an artist that I'm sure somebody out there might be interested in. What I'm trying to say is that you have to invest in a lot of different avenues of what you are capable of doing. So things like AI and companies would find it difficult to target you as being disposable. It's very difficult for something to take over all of that unless if they're literally going to take over your entire body or your entire self. So I hope that if anything, this inspires you to try out different things, and this is not saying that you should burn yourself out from doing so many things. I will say yes, there are moments I faced burnout and exhaustion from doing these things, but when you can select the concoction of different projects that you actually enjoy doing and there is a flow within them, you'll eventually find that flow within your work, but you don't know what that mixture of things you could be doing is yet until you start trying those different things. Anyway, thank you for watching A Week in My Life, and I will see you all in the next one.